Hi everyone. Today I thought I would talk about country music. Yeah, basically, I'm not a fan of new country, any kind of country from the past many years. But I will say in the 60s, as much as I was a fan of the Beatles and the Monkees and other great 60s bands and artists, my dad had a vinyl collection, and when I got bored, I would go over to it and look through it and play some of the records, and most of it didn't appeal to me at all. But there were certain songs and sometimes certain artists that I really did like, and so I thought I would show you 12 of my favorite country songs from the 60s. Some of them might have been recorded before the 60s, but I heard them in the 60s, so that's what I mean by that. And they're not ranked or anything, it's just 12 songs I love. And I've made a Spotify playlist, and I'll have it linked in the comment section below if you want to check it out. So here we go. Yeah, Johnny Cash, that album, and my dad had I Walk the Line, a couple of other albums too. There was even, was it Tales of the Old West or something like that. It was the very first double album that I ever saw. Yeah, 2 vinyl records and a gatefold. But I think my favorite Johnny Cash song from back then is the title song Orange Blossom Special, mainly an instrumental with Johnny Cash kind of hooting and hollering throughout it. But yeah, I just love that song, and I love, of course, Johnny Cash. Hank Snow, yes, the great Canadian from Nova Scotia. And most of my dad had quite a few of his albums, and there were only a couple of songs I really loved. One of them is I'm Moving On, and my favorite, I've Been Everywhere, Man, I've Been Everywhere. Yeah, it was so, it almost, it was the energy of the track, and it was so fast. It was almost like a, a rock song. And so, and these album covers, remind me of my dad too. Yeah, great memories. Next up. Yeah, Johnny Horton's Greatest Hits. North to Alaska. What else is on here? Sink the Bismarck. Johnny Reb. Whispering Pines. And, the picture there of Johnny Horton reminds me of my dad. That's kind of similar to the way my dad looked in the 60s. Good looking man. But my favorite would have to be the Battle of New Orleans. Yeah, Buck Owens and the Buckaroos. I liked a lot of his songs. And of course, Act Naturally, the Beatles covered. Ringo was a big country and western fan. I think all of the Beatles appreciated, some country music. And I remember back in the 60s when I was playing Act Naturally by the Beatles. And I didn't realize that it was, it was written by somebody else. It wasn't a Beatles original. And my dad was saying, that's the Buck Owens song. And it was like he was, I don't know, like I was happy that my dad was kind of appreciating a Beatles song. Not that him or my mom ever put them down necessarily, but they weren't, big fans of the Beatles either. But he seemed to enjoy their cover of Buck Owens' Act Naturally. I think my favorite is Together Again. Yeah. Yep. Next up, George Jones, The Race Is On. Love that song. Later on, of course, in the 70s, he stopped loving her today. That's a great song. Overall, though, back in the 60s, I think that was the only song of his that kind of caught my ear. And so it's always been a favorite of mine. Yeah, Roger Miller. Now, because he was different than all of the other country artists because he seemed to be having fun, with his songs. Like You Can't Roller Skate in a Buffalo Herd and Do Wackadoo, and quite a few of them I liked. Of course, King of the Road it might actually be my favorite, but I chose You Can't Roller Skate in a Buffalo Herd because of his very silly humor. And as some of you might know, I like silly humor. And he was also a fantastic musician. Yeah. Hank Williams, Your Cheating Heart. I really liked quite a few of his songs, and his voice. Back when I was a kid, I didn't know the whole story about his life and how it sadly ended at such a young age. But there was just, even at the time, there was something, I don't know, ghostly about his vocals. Haunting. And so, yeah. I think my favorite, though, was Your Cheating Heart. Yep. Charlie Pride. Especially for the 60s. I'm not sure when his career started, but there certainly weren't very many black country stars, right? And he was a big star for many, many years. And I really liked a lot of his songs. My favorite is probably Just Between You and Me, but The Snakes Crawl at Night, All I Have to Offer You Is Me. Does My Ring Hurt Your Finger? Even songs like that. You kind of listen to when you're a kid, you listen to the lyrics and it's not really totally making sense, but you're kind of, like Your Cheating Heart. You really don't know what that really means, but you kind of get some kind of idea that it's not good. So yeah, Just Between You and Me. Yeah. Tex Ritter. It was just that one song of his. It was about all of these stars that had passed on, and, he's talking about them. And I think that was possibly from the 50s. I don't know if it was the 60s. But his son is the one and only John Ritter from Three's Company. Yeah. Now, my dad didn't have this particular album cover, thankfully, but I picked it because I don't know if he was auditioning to be the werewolf, but that certainly didn't suit him. But his song, Young Love, I've always loved. And I think that one was from the late 50s. And it might not even be necessarily country music, but I remember my dad having that song in his collection, maybe on some greatest hits album or something. All right, couple more to go. Yep. Patsy Cline. Yeah, my favorite is Crazy, and Walking After Midnight is great too. But once again, sad story with her dying in a plane crash. Of course, Crazy was written by Willie Nelson, and just a great song, one of the great country songs. Yep. And Merle Haggard. There's quite a few to choose from. The Fighting Side of Me I love. Mama Tried, and then, of course, Okie from Muskogee. And yeah, it says here that he always considered what became a redneck anthem to be a spoof, and that today fans, even the hippies who are derided in the lyrics, have taken a liking to the song and find humor in some of the lyrics. Yeah. And love his vocals, and a great talent. And the only other artist, now my dad wasn't a fan of his, but in the 70s, Kenny Rogers was everywhere. Of course, first with Kenny Rogers in the first edition, but, I never bought any of his albums. But I have to admit, I've listened to his songs on Spotify, and he's got quite a few really good songs. Just dropped in to see what condition my condition is in with the first edition. Coward of the County is Lady, We've Got Tonight, Lucille, of course, The Gambler, You Decorated My Life. Yeah, Ruby, Don't Take Your Love to Town. That's another one of my favorites with the first edition. And I just loved the tone of his voice. And he was definitely one of the biggest stars in the 70s and 80s. So yeah, that's it. Let me know, do you like old country? And what are some of your favorite songs or artists? Thanks for watching. Have a great day.